All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Derry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's up, Cody?
I am trying to figure out the 4-point lighting, which
Yeah,
includes.
well, the funny thing is this episode started with you just staring at your ceiling. That's going to be the opening visual of this episode, so that's perfect. You're just like looking
That is
around
amazing.
like something was flying over your head.
Well, so I have two lights here. Let's see if you can actually see my hands. I have two lights here,
Yeah.
and then a array of lights above me, but that casts a shadow here. So then I bought lights that I attached to the stand behind me that are those things that you put on like music sheets, so that you can conduct it at
Yep,
night.
yep, yep.
Yeah, so I bought two of those and put them behind there, but those are the weakest links. So I
See,
may
what you
have to like.
need is the fill light. So like a fill light will just like you put a little screen over the light itself and it sort of bounces light all around the room and it basically eliminates all of the harsh shadows that you get in any given shot. So right now I have like a pseudo like natural fill light from my window. So there's not many hard shadows. I guess there would be one if I put my hand up.
Look
But
at
it's even
that
that's not too bad.
fill light. All right.
All right, yeah, we'll send one your way. Maybe we should do an episode on lighting because I learned so much about lighting trying to figure out how to get stuff set up for the live stream. But
Okay.
in the
Okay.
meantime, let's dive right in with the Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. Sign up for the giveaway on our Facebook page. And this week's winner is William R. from Providence, Rhode Island. P-Town. Is that P-Town? Or is that
Providence is.
Provincetown?
I
That's
don't know.
Provincetown. That's
What it,
Provincetown on Cape Cod. That's P-Town. Providence, Rhode Island is just Providence, Rhode Island.
I
So,
never heard.
anyways, you
Never
got
heard of P Town.
a Country Shore hat and copies of our ebooks heading your way. Congratulations on winning the Country Shore giveaway. Everyone else, head on over to our Facebook page, sign up for next week's giveaway, and while you're on our Facebook page, answer our question of the week, which this past week, what was that, Cody?
What's your app idea? Which there's a really good one which I actually had on a different level, but the specific idea that we got was some app that can identify things when you're flying overhead. So when you're flying cross country and you always look down, you're like, what the heck is that? Or like, where am I? What is that? It can identify where you are, and if you're like looking at a mountain range, what the mountain range is and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It would have to be some like image recognition. And obviously, one of the biggest challenges with airlines is, or anything in the air, is connectivity.
Yeah, you
But
can't actually use data.
I actually saw someone who built something on. It was a Twitter bot, and it used recognition. And I think what it was is you could tweet photos at the bot, and the bot could guess where the photos were from, and it was accurate like 98% of the time.
Well, the thing you could do with that app too is because uh, all routes are basically the same for similar flights. So if you're flying from Vegas to LA, they're not going to fly up into Canada and then back down. It's going to be the same route every single time. So you could preload data and then just sort of based on time, I guess, like you click when you took off based on time, it would be able to sort of like kind of guess where you are. That's what they do for the night sky apps or hiking apps or something like that, where you're going to be going somewhere with zero connectivity. You can sort of preload all the data in and then just use the app offline. Basically, you can do something similar for like that flight. What the heck is that underneath me app?
Or you can do what I do when I don't have connectivity, which is just panic.
Just completely lose your mind. I guess you could
sweating buckets.
Yeah, it's like airplane. Speaking of airplanes, when he's just like pouring sweat. Yeah, or you could take pictures, I guess, and save it for later and have it tell you after the fact. I guess that's less fun than knowing what it is while you're over it. It's a cool idea. App.
Yeah, it would be pretty neat. I had an idea for that, something similar where, like, so around town in a pretty affluent area, there's this house that started to get built, brand new, and literally it was going like gangbusters, and then it just got abandoned. And it's like it's more than halfway built, but it's just sitting there. and it's been sitting there for like a year now. And I always like wonder what the heck happened. And it's not something that would elevate to the level of like in the local news, but some sort of app where it's like, what's the deal with this? And like, so I could find out what the heck happened to this house. And that's the only example I could think of. So it's probably not a great idea for an app.
So
But
like it would be sort of
I really
location
want to know.
and like users who are in the general area would see like what the heck is going on posts. And if
Right.
anybody knows what the heck is going on, like there was an ambulance outside my house a couple days ago, and I'm genuinely curious what the heck happened with that.
Right. It would be like Waz or Waze, I guess it's
Yeah, yeah,
pronounced.
ways, yeah.
Ways where people, it's like basically user generated. So people report a car up ahead, and so like traffic is slowed. And so when you're driving along, you get an alert saying, oh, there's a car on the side of the road up ahead. And then sure enough, in like 2 minutes, you see a car up ahead. But that's just user reported. So it'd be, yeah, the same type of deal where it'd just be geolocated. And, as you're going through that area, you get like you get a couple notifications about like what the heck's going on here. And then if you knew what was going on, you could type in what is going on, or you could just say, yeah, let me know what's going on here because I want to know too.
There's another cool app idea, and I know we're kind of running along here and we got a late start, so we'll try and wrap this up. But there's another cool idea about just having random stuff delivered to you. Like you would maybe put $100 into the app, and then just every now and then it might order something from Grubhub, so you get some like delicious treat from Grubhub delivered to your door as a surprise. Or like it might order something from Amazon that's on your wish list and just have it delivered, and it'd be like a make my day app for people who don't have other people to make their day for them, I guess.
That is interesting and depressing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool idea, right? It'd be fun to just have a new game or something delivered to your door completely unexpected. I guess it
Yeah,
used to be that people would do that for you,
and you could
but
respond with like a thank you card to your
to some central robot.
yeah that opens a support ticket.
Yeah, yeah. That is it really it kind of is depressing, but I guess it's kind of the app that we need. Might not be the
Yeah.
app that we want. But those were all really cool ideas. We had a whole bunch of them. So thank you guys for posting those. And what's the question of the week for next week, Cody?
How long do you think it takes to build a mobile app? And I'm not saying anything because I don't want to bias the responses. We'll go into the
That is it. Yeah, that is a topical question.
yes,
Um, and the answers might surprise you.
or they might not. They might not.
Yeah. Tune in next
Tune
week
in
to
to find
find
out.
out if they surprise you or not.
Tune in. Yeah.
So let's dive right into part two of our 10-part entrepreneur series here. Last week we talked about the sort of initial idea and how that process works, how we get approached by people who have ideas, what the initial steps are to sort of suss out I guess both the viability, but also sort of the guts of the idea and sort of the nitty gritty details, especially whether it's being done, what sort of the long term plans are for making it profitable, or if that's even part of the part of the idea itself. Whether I mean people just have ideas for apps that they want built just for the usefulness of them. So I guess this week we're going to sort of dive a little bit deeper into the next steps, which largely after you sort of I guess gotten the gist of the idea, the next steps we usually take are really to sort of nail down the process and how we work and how the rest of the relationship is going to sort of unfold in terms of the week to week development of the idea itself.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to get into the next phase of once you've vetted your idea, trying to get an idea of how long what's it going to take to actually build your idea in terms of loose timelines, budgets, resources, things like that. Because that's the next step is kind of once you've vetted your idea is to get an idea of kind of what it's going to take to get it out there.
And I guess just for people who might not have seen last week's episode, we're sort of doing a bit of role playing here, where Cody is the Gunner Technology representative, and I'm the idea guy, the idea man, um, the lunatic with the crazy idea that's going to change the world. And I guess just to talk about the idea itself, an implementation of the tried and true method of one of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, for improving your writing, which is basically he had a whole series of steps that would take apart like an essay or a book or a section of writing that he really liked, and he would try and figure out why it worked, and then try to put it in his own words, and then put it into poetry, put it back into prose, and sort of improve his writing that way. So, if you want more detail on that, check out episode 1 of the 10-part series, where we kind of go in depth on that whole process. But I guess this week, let's sort of dive in with, I guess we would come back to the entrepreneur and say, we've sort of we've got a general gist of the idea and a general gist of the timeline and resources needed. So let's just sort of talk through that and how this whole thing's going to work, or what the options are. So I guess just take it away wherever you want to start.
Yeah, as I was prepping, I was thinking, like, at this phase, when we're involved, it's mainly us doing the work, and then because the ball's in our court after we have a general understanding of the idea and things like that. So there's work that you and I can do as both Gunner Technology, and then we'll kind of get into bringing the entrepreneur back into the fold to kind of answer any clarifications, because the process that we use, again, if you watch episode 1, you know that I got to the bottom of some specifics, helped the entrepreneur vet the idea, get to some functionality, but really still a high level idea. The point of this exercise is to kind of break it down into finer feature points. And so this process is called like planning. Shocking. Planning in the agile world. And so if you've seen previous episodes, we talk about agile, which is how we handle project management. Now, the thing about agile is that, unlike the alternative, which is waterfall, where you line up everything from start to finish and have sort of stages that are dependent on another stage, features that are dependent on another feature, and kind of have the whole plan from start to finish. Agile is much more nimble, where basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the first set of features, the known set of features, and kind of at least have a complete list of features. And then every week every iteration, which for us is a week, start building those features each week. And the way it works is you basically sit down, and again, at this point, we're probably not going to have the entrepreneur be a part of this session. This is going to be on us to try to get a first round here. We're going to sit down and look at all our notes and research from the conversations with the entrepreneur, and we're going to try to create every single feature called a user story. And so the first thing we have to do, and again, this would be a question for the entrepreneur, is how many, and Derry, when I finish this, you can take the question away. How many different roles will there be? Meaning, obviously, there'll be a user for this application. Will there be an admin functionality? Will there be an admin role? Will there be a moderator role? So again, the user will do things like load content in order to be able to jumble it and rearrange it. Maybe an admin is there to, again, add to feature stories. Maybe an admin can feature content every week, and a moderator, maybe the moderator's role is to delete or flag things that are offensive. So that's what we mean when we say how many roles are involved. And I will present that question to you, Derry, as the entrepreneur for the app. How many different roles are there with the app that you foresee at this point?
Yeah, and we had talked through this last week, just in terms of ideas about marketing and sort of the business model for this, which is another cool thing about working with entrepreneurs, is that you kind of plant the seeds for ideas that maybe they hadn't thought of. So, if we're just building this app out as sort of an exercise, it'd be cool to have an app that you could use to Benjamin Franklin's methodology for learning how to improve your writing digitally. But then if we push the entrepreneur a little bit to sort of think about the business model and where the angles might be to make money, which, we actually did last week, it makes you think about stuff that maybe you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So the ideas that came to mind for me were allowing magazines, newspapers, anyone, or any news organization to feature pieces of their writing in the application itself, and then additionally licensing the application to schools, to universities, to high schools or business schools or law schools, to sort of integrate lingua franklin with their courses. So in terms of that, it seems to me like there would be obviously the base user. That would be either the individual user or a user as part of an organization. There would be some sort of an idea of a super admin, someone within lingua franklin, or multiple people who would sort of have control over articles that get featured from news organizations, or the ability to set up new schools or new organizations uh, to utilize the app itself. And then within those organizations, I don't think you would need a user necessarily for, say, the New York Times to send us articles. I think that would kind of be done offline. But for a school, let's say, there would be the idea of not a super admin, but an admin of an organization. So there would be sort of three levels. There'd be just sort of the base user, some sort of admin of an organization, and then a super admin user within Lingua Franklin itself.
And then do we need a moderator for moderating content? Actually, the answer to that is yes, if this is going to be in the App Store, because now both Apple and Google require you to have moderation functionality.
Which is tough, man. I mean, that adds so much overhead. It's ridiculous. Which is
Yeah,
another reason why PWAs are the future. Um,
it's kind of funny though, because it's such a joke. And to go back, if you submit an app to, say, the Apple App Store, and it has the functionality to create user generated content, meaning the users can write any content, you have to have moderation capabilities. But the funny thing is it only needs to look like you have moderation capabilities. So you basically have like a little, like, if you're just, again, on a shoestring budget trying to get something out the door, you put a little flag next to each piece of content, and when someone taps it, you say thank you. Your report has been submitted. I mean, and that's all you have to do. There doesn't have to be a report to be submitted. It just needs to look like it. That's all that needs to happen. So it is kind of an
that's pretty
interesting
locked down.
thing. It's kind of like GDPR, where it's unfair to the little guys, because building an actual,
Building a moderation system is a huge undertaking.
yeah, or licensing one
Yes,
is a
exactly.
big
Yeah, that's a
dollar
major
amount.
cost.
Yeah, so it is
Tough.
kind of one of those things where there should be, like, once your app hits a certain amount of users, then you need to have moderation, kind of thing.
So in
Uh,
that case, I would say there doesn't need to be a moderator for this app, um, since nobody actually sees what other people have uploaded. You're sort of uploading stuff solely for yourself.
okay,
So I don't think there's the need out of the gate for moderation. If eventually it sort of opens up to the point where people can see what other users have uploaded, I think at that point you would need moderation. But you're either going to see what you uploaded or what your professor uploaded.
okay. So we'll leave moderation. We'll leave the moderator role out for now. So we have the user role, the organization admin role, and the super admin role.
Yeah.
So now that we've defined those, what we do, and again, this is kind of something that we would take offline and kind of hash out based on the information we have, is we'd come up with user stories for each of those roles. So a user story basically takes the format of, as a what, I would like to do what, because why.
Why? Yeah.
So for example, as a super admin, I would like the ability to reset a user's password, uh, so that I can help a user who forgets their password.
Yeah.
And so basically, the and again, maybe this is done with the entrepreneur, maybe this is done with us, but the job now, and we won't do it in this meeting, because it can take hours, is to come up with an exhaustive list of all of the user stories we can think of for each role. And the trick to a good user story, is to keep it to one thing. So not as a user, I want to be able to jumble and rearrange disparate articles. It would be as a user, I want to jumble articles so that I can put them together, so that I can put them back together in a more meaningful way. And then you'd have another user story. As a user, I want to be able to put back together jumbled stories.
Right.
So you keep each thing to one piece of functionality. So with that in mind, why don't you just give us like a few for each role or a couple for each role that would get us started?
Yeah, and it just as an addendum to that, I think in addition to keeping it one thing per story, you want it to be one thing, like a manageable size one thing. So you can sort of define, per your team what size manageable is. We usually do 1 week or less just because that's the length of an iteration. So you wouldn't want to say, as a passenger, I would like to book an Uber so that I could get to an airport. Like that's a 3-year project.
Right.
So you would want to break that into its component parts and sort of be able to build out each part iteratively, as opposed to one gigantic story that's going to take months or years to build, or even weeks. You want something that you can sort of get done within an iteration or two. I mean, sometimes we'll have uh, even tickets that take a couple iterations. We'll try to break down into pieces that can be built out each iteration. So that's just sort of like a little add on to that thought. But in terms of uh, user stories for roles, it would be something like as a user, I would like to upload a piece of text so that I can uh, use it within the application. Something like that would be the upload component. As a user, I would like to see a list of all texts I've uploaded so that I can select one to work with. As a user, I would like the ability to remove a text from my list so that I don't see it anymore. As a user, I would like to open a text so that I can start working with it. Let's do some other roles. As a super admin, I would like to be able to upload a feature text so that I can promote. I guess that's not the right way to say that. And again, part of this process is sort of sussing out exactly how the functionality is going to work with the application itself. So,
Yep.
it'd be as a super admin, I would like to upload a piece of feature text so that outside organizations could, I guess, feature their text within Lingua Franklin. Maybe as an admin, I would like the ability to add a user to my group so that they could see the text that I've uploaded. As an admin, I would like to remove a user from a group so that they would no longer be able to see the text that I've uploaded. Um, how many more should we do?
I think that's good. I think that's
Okay.
good. The point there is obviously to get as many on the table as we can think of. And
Yeah,
again,
and,
that's
and
a
this takes hours or even days. I mean,
yeah,
you want to get a
exactly.
completely exhaustive list of basically everything. And this is again, like Cody said, we would do it either offline or just kind of back and forth with the entrepreneur, maybe over a couple meetings. There might be questions about there might be some piece of functionality that we don't know exactly how it works. So we talk with the entrepreneur about how that piece of functionality works, and then once we have a better understanding, create a couple dozen more user stories once we know exactly how that stuff works.
Right, exactly right. And so at the end of the day, what we want is we want to have a big pile of user stories. And once we have that big pile of user stories, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of, as the development team, we're going to sit down and we're going to start what Derry was alluding to earlier is we're going to start assigning effort points to each one. And so, by the way, it's okay if there's more user stories that come up during the development of the app. As a matter of fact,
There
there
will be,
always
yeah.
is. I mean, without fail, there always is. But in order to get that kind of loose timeline, that loose budget figured out, that estimation, this is kind of what we do. So we go through and we try to assign effort points, and effort points is very similar to estimated hours. As a matter of fact, for for point of this discussion, we can say it's hours. But instead of like a time, it's a point. And so you have we do a scale of 2, so we go 0, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And so 32 requires the most quote unquote effort, where 0 requires no effort. And also, well, I'll leave it for a side. 0 is a very easy thing to do, requires no effort. 32 is the most. Anything that requires over 32 effort points, we split it into multiple tickets. Again, because 32 is a number where we're like, that's pushing it for a single developer to get that done in an iteration. So if we think it's over 32 effort points, we break it into 2 stories or 3 stories or whatever. The next thing that kind of happens is sometimes we'll get to a user story and we won't know how much effort goes into it. So in that case, if there's any at the beginning of the project, if there's any user stories that have an unknown effort point, we do what's called a research sprint. We plan in a research sprint. So again, this is another 1-week iteration, but it's geared toward doing the research to figure out how much effort something would take. And again, usually in doing those research sprints, you remove a lot of the effort for a given user story because sometimes the effort is doing the research. So the point is, you get the user stories, you assign effort points. If there's any stories you can't assign an effort points to, you do a research sprint to figure out what the effort points is for that. Then after that, all of your first round user stories should have an effort point level, right? So then at that point, you're pretty much ready to get started. But we still want to be able to back into a kind of estimation or budget for the entrepreneur. Now, this is, again, where it comes in from us, where everyone obviously asks what's it going to cost. And it depends on so many factors. Like what we're trying to figure out for the entrepreneur is a total number of effort points. So let's just say, based on our research, our planning, there's all the user stories add up to be 100 effort points, right? So then we basically go to the entrepreneur and say, how quickly do you want this done? Do you want like a full 8-person team? Do you want a 1-person team? Like what do you want done here? And so if they say, I want a 1-person team, well, we know on average that one developer can put in about 32 effort points per iteration. So if they say, I want a 1-person team, you basically take 100, divide it by 32, and then you get your timeline of how many iterations or weeks it's going to take to get those user stories out of there. So in that case, you're talking like 3 iterations, which is 100 effort points is a very bad example. I'd say usually on average, it ends up being somewhere between, like 1,000 and 5,000 for the initial project. So 100 was a bad number, but I'm just using it because I can't do math in my head very well.
Well, I guess the other thing to add there too is that using this methodology with effort and sort of figuring out exactly how many points you have, it helps the entrepreneur get to an idea of a minimal viable product. We talk about MVP all the time, especially in terms of actually launching, and we have a whole episode devoted to actually launching your app. But one of the best aspects of this way of managing projects is the fact that it really makes you decide what the crucial features of your application are, because there's only so much time and resources available to actually build your idea out. Obviously it'd be great if we could have every single feature implemented, without fail in a timely manner. But the reality of the situation is you're going to have to make decisions about what absolutely needs to be built so that you could launch this application, and then sort of down the road decide and sort of prioritize what the next features to build out are.
Right, right, 100%. And I'm gonna revise my number up to 1,000 and say that 1 person, again, for easy math, a 1-person team is 10 effort points in iteration. So then you're looking at 100 weeks to complete the project. Now, why that number changes? Now, that's a great estimation to go to and be
100.
like, okay,
Isn't that
what's
30
that?
weeks? Isn't that 30 weeks, give or take?
No, 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 no. I revised down 1-person effort points to 10. So just to make it easy. So you have 1,000 points,
Okay.
10 effort points per iteration. You got 100 iterations, which is 100 weeks. And so basically you go to them and say, all right, you wanted a one-person team, which is going to cost X dollars per month. And that one-person team, we estimate can take 10 effort points per iteration, which is a week. So that means they're knocking off 40 iteration points per month. So then there's 1,000 total. So you'd basically take
That's
1,000
25 months. Is about 2 years
divided
to finish the project. So
yeah,
say 32. Let's 32. It'll take 30 weeks.
wait,
For 1,000,
32.
will take 30 weeks. So say one person, just because nobody's gonna. I mean, some people would do 100 week project,
Oh,
but
so you
let's
want to
say,
say you want to go back to our 32?
yeah, just to make the
Okay.
numbers more like what we usually see.
So
So
32 times
30.
4. So you're basically getting 128 iterations. You're trying to get 128 effort points per month. So then you take 1,000 and divide it by that, and you get
Yeah, you're looking at 30 weeks or about 7 months.
yep, 7.8 months. So we'll say
There you
8
go.
months. So basically, you say, okay, you're looking at an 8-month project, and with one developer, that's whatever. Let's call it $1,000 per month. You're looking at $8,000 to build this. That's kind
Yeah.
of how you arrive at that. Now, it's possible. Let's say we want it done quicker. It's like, okay, great. We can add another developer, and 2 developers on average have an iteration, or excuse me, an effort point per iteration of 50. Notice it doesn't double. It doesn't go 32, 64.
Yeah.
Adding another person it's not linear like that, or not. Yeah, linear is the right word. It's not linear. It kind of, because there's not all work can be done in parallel. So adding a developer doesn't double your it's called velocity. Velocity is how many effort points you can get done per iteration. It doesn't double your velocity, but it increases your velocity. And so then we're like, okay, we can add a developer, and that'll bring the velocity up to 50 points per iteration. So
So
then
instead
you're
of
looking at
31 weeks, you're looking at 20 weeks.
right, exactly, which is 5 months. So then you're like, okay, then you're looking at a 5-month project at say 2 grand per month. So then you're looking at a $10,000 project overall. So that's kind of how we arrive at a loose budget. Now, almost always that loose budget is not going to be sufficient, and here's why. So at the end of every iteration, you as the entrepreneur get to see the user stories that you put it that we put into that iteration. So to use the example, as a user, I want to be able to jumble a story. At the end of that iteration, we will get on a conference call, a video call, and as the entrepreneur, you will be able to see the app allowing a user to do just that. Inevitably, what happens is the entrepreneur sees it and it's like, that's awesome. And it makes me think that I would also like to add the ability to do this. Totally okay. That's part of Agile, but it adds to that overall timeline when they do that, which, again, to Darius' point, is a phenomenal way for the entrepreneur to be able to weigh, cost benefit. So it's kind of like, okay, great. Love the fact that you want to add another feature, and you'll see exactly how that's going to affect the budget and timeline. Is it so? Now that you see that, is it worth it to you to add that feature, or do you want to get this product out the door and then circle back later and add that feature?
I think that's actually a great place to stop this episode because I sort of on the fly rejiggered the order of this entrepreneur series. I think next week it'd probably be good to talk about how you actually pay for it, the app, how to pay for the app to get built out, because there's multiple sources of funding when you're sort of building an idea out, and each one kind of has its own set of foibles that you have to worry about. Um,
I just
so
wanted to add one. I just
yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
add
yeah.
one
I
thing
was gonna
before
say
we
the
wrap it up.
yeah, and if this isn't the thing, make sure to talk about the first 30 days for new clients. But go ahead with your one thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is
All right.
because the again, I kind of glossed over it, but velocity, that's how many effort points the entire team can get done in an iteration. Now, we have an average in our head based on other projects. We could be wrong on that on a given project, or maybe the team we put together works exceedingly well, and well, we estimated a 50-point velocity, maybe they're actually at like a 60-point velocity. So what we do, and also this is always a new concept to most entrepreneurs, this agile kind of mindset where they really have to be involved because they're making decisions each week after they see the project. it's tough to get your head around it sometimes. So what we do as a company, we basically say the first 4 iterations, which ends up being 30 days, that's a free period for new clients. It's just a feeling out period. We Gunner do exactly what we've been saying, but we take the user stories, we build an estimation, and we start working on those tickets in the those user stories in the first 30 days, all free for the entrepreneur. The end goal is to get the entrepreneur involved in the process, and us also to get a better estimation at the end of that 30 days on what the rest of the project's going to take. Now, sometimes we've done the whole project in 30 days, which very small projects for some new clients, which is great for them because they basically get a free app. But inevitably, they're always like, okay, I want to do more. I want to do more. I want to do more. And that's why kind of, we've been when I told another a fellow colleague about this, they said, "You're crazy. You're giving away free work." But our average relationship is like 4 years with a client. So with this agile methodology, you get that MVP, and maybe you get that MVP in 30 days, but that MVP is going to grow. It's going to take on a life of its own. And as it starts taking shape into the entrepreneur's vision, and especially as users start using it and giving their feedback, the feature set inevitably gets bigger and bigger, and there's no stop to it. You're always going to be growing the app in terms of what it can do and what it can offer.
And I guess also in terms of growing the app, as the app grows, the options for funding increase as well. You sort of open a bunch of doors as your app gets more popular. So that'll be the topic next week, is basically how you pay for your app, both upfront and on an ongoing basis. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to check out the blog post at gunnertech.com. The podcast will be on iTunes. Check out our ebooks on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, iBooks, Kobo, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. Hop on our Facebook page and sign up for the Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. And while you're on our Facebook page, make sure to answer next week's question of the week, which is what, Cody? Remind them again.
How long do you think it takes to build a mobile app?
So hop on our Facebook page, answer that question, and make sure to tune in next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Derry. That's Cody. We'll see you next week.